So often in the Bible, the heroes in the stories are men. From the Hebrew Bible, Noah and Abraham, Isaac and Jacob, Joseph, Moses, Joshua, Samuel, Saul, David, Solomon. From the New Testament, you've got Jesus and Joseph and the disciples and Stephen and Paul. I could go on and on and on. Stories about these guys abound. But sometimes the principal figure in the stories are not men, are not one of the numerous dudes. Even when Jesus is a principal character, on occasion we get a story where the woman takes center stage, where her actions are central, where she is lifted up as an example for us to follow, where her response is vital to understanding the biblical account. And that's the case here. And it's not just the simple reality that this story is a healing story. It's one of the elements of the fact that this story is so popular because it's someone who's just like us, a regular person struggling with life, struggling with problems. She speaks to us from the margins of life. This story speaks to us in ways that translate well from a different world to today and touches us in the crowded streets of our lives and brings us healing and wholeness. The depths of how it touches us today can be seen first and foremost in the tragedy of her condition. This woman was suffering from blood hemorrhages. Bleeding is a no-no in the ancient Jewish society and religious community. When blood comes out of the body, you become ritually unclean. And not just you, but you become a danger to other people. Anybody who touches you will become ritually unclean. And this woman is suffering not just with some kind of a small little bleed, a little cut on her finger that'll heal up in just a few minutes. No, she's hemorrhaging and has been hemorrhaging for 12 long years. She struggled with this for a long time, with this illness and with the cultural separation, with being ostracized from society because she's a bearer of uncleanness due to her hemorrhaging. And she's tried to get cured. She's been to doctors, but they can't help her. She's wasted money on them, but she's still hemorrhaging. She's still unclean. She's still ostracized. She's still marginalized in that society. And now we find her in this story in the middle of a crowd. She's heard that Jesus has compassion for people. She's heard that Jesus heals people, people just like her, people who are, by her condition, on the margins of society, people who have been outcast, disregarded, pushed away, ignored, unvalued, even hated and feared. Jesus has healed them, delivered them, brought them new life, new acceptance, full inclusion and affirmation. Just like her, just like us, just like you and just like me, she has been brought in by Jesus' love and presence. This story speaks to us. This character speaks to us because she is us. I've said this several times before in sermons here. Throughout the Gospels, there are stories about people who go unnamed, who are nevertheless important characters, who are intended by the authors of the stories to be places for us as hearers and readers of the story to stand. These are characters who are stand-ins for us. We are invited to stand in their sandals, in the middle of the story, and place ourselves into the account and come to know God, come to know Jesus, come to know the reality of the divine for ourselves by being part of the story. And this is one of those stories. We are invited into the story to stand in the sandals of this woman. We're invited to place ourselves in our imaginations into her life experience and come to touch Jesus in and through her story. It's a literary device, and it is a spiritual device that can make us live in the story, that can make the story live for us and within us. It's a device that can give us new insights on ourselves, on our lives, on our condition, and on God. So let's do that. I want you to take a moment and close your eyes. Go ahead, close them. Now, what problem? What condition? What concern, what fear, what pain, what need is troubling you right now? What is hemorrhaging in your life, causing you to pull back from others, causing you to be pushed away by others, causing you to become marginalized from society or from family or from community, causing you to fear being around others, out and about, causing you to retreat, to withdraw, to hide from yourself, from interactions with other people, from becoming and being the person that God wants you to be. You might think, oh no, there's nothing like that going on in my life. Okay, perhaps not from others, but what about from yourself? What are you pushing to the margins in your life? What are you afraid to look at, afraid to deal with, afraid to take out and fix and repair or change? Afraid that if others knew it about you, you'd be pushed aside, marginalized, rejected, discounted, ignored. I dare say most of us, if not all of us, have something or some things in us that we're afraid of, that are hemorrhaging out our lives. What care, concern, need, fear, worry, pressure is pushing you away from yourself, away from others, away from God. Now, in your imagination, with your eyes still closed, in your imagination, you're slowly threading your way through a crowd of people in a place you wouldn't normally go because people don't want you around. And if they knew that you were there, they'd be mad and you'd be in trouble. You'd be tossed out, rejected, pushed to the margin of the crowd and beyond. But you're here anyway. Because you're sick and tired of being sick and tired. You're sick and tired of being pushed out, of being marginalized, of being ostracized. And you know that Jesus can change that. You know that this teacher, this holy man, this presence of the divine in our midst can heal you, can make you whole, if you can only get close to him. The wonderful changes that others are experiencing can be your experience too. And so, you're threading your way through the crowd, hoping no one notices you, hoping no one sees that you're there, or realizes that you're sneaking in amongst them, with them to do harm to them, to make them sick or unclean. You're sneaking through the crowd, just hoping not to get caught before you can get close enough to Jesus, for Jesus to make you whole. And then suddenly you're there. To your surprise, you've made it. You're standing right there behind Jesus, and you reach out and touch the hem of his garment, his robe, his cloak, and you feel it. The change happens. The miracle occurs. You feel suddenly whole, included, affirmed, no longer pushed aside. But you're right there, in the middle of it, in the midst of God's love. And then you get noticed. Jesus notices you. "Who touched my clothes?" he asks. And his disciples said to him, "You see the crowd pressing in on you? How can you say, 'Who touched me?'" And Jesus looked all around to see who had done it. But you, knowing what had happened to you, how you've been ill and been ostracized and been marginalized, but now you've snuck in and you've touched Jesus and touched the divine and are now no longer outside but inside with God, now you've been caught. So you come forward with fear and trembling at having been caught, even though you shouldn't be afraid. You've been so oppressed for being filthy and rejected and unclean for so long that it's hard to shake free of the fear reaction of being here where society tells you you can't be. And so you come with fear and trembling and you throw yourself at Jesus' feet and you tell Jesus the whole truth about yourself and what you've done. And Jesus says to you, "My child, your faith has made you whole. Go in peace and be made whole in your whole life." Not anger, not rejection, but love, acceptance, inclusion, affirmation. You've not known such acceptance, such inclusion, not for 12 years, but now you do. You've not been pushed away by God. If your eyes are still closed, you can open them now. That's what being close to Jesus can bring in your life. Wholeness and transformation, inclusion, acceptance, affirmation. The fear of being rejected, of being cast out, of being pushed to the margins by the church is one that many people face. Over the past couple of generations, that's what the church has been doing to people, pushing them to the edge, and sometimes over the edge. Actually, it's not new. It's what the church has done to people for almost 2,000 years. If it's not one group, it's another. One of the first splits in Methodism, way back in the late 1700s, was over the inclusion of African Americans in the life of the church. Oh, they could come to church, but they had to sit in the balcony. They couldn't be in leadership. They couldn't be pastors. They had to sit in the balcony and be quiet. And so they left the Methodist Episcopal Church. They left that community and they formed the African Methodist Episcopal Church, a place where they could be accepted and affirmed and in leadership right there with Jesus. Today, whole generations of people have been so beaten up by the church that those people don't want to come through the doors, only for fear of getting beaten up again, either metaphorically or sometimes literally beaten up. And that should be a reality to our shame. We must confess it, and our participation in it as the church. We have pushed people out for many reasons, be it their nation of origin, be it their social status, be it their economic status or their educational status, their marital status, their gender identity, their sexual orientation. The community called Christian, the church, has majored and pushing people like the woman with the hemorrhage out. Here at the end of Pride Month, it's the experience of LGBTQ people. LGBTQ Christians are often told that we can't be Christians if we're gay. Last week I had someone say to me in an email, salvation is by grace through faith in Jesus Christ, but not if you're gay. If you're gay, you've got to add the work of being straight, and then you can have grace and can have faith. It's the nonsense of the crowd pushing us away, pushing people whom Jesus welcomes, loves, embraces, and affirms away. If that's you, if for any reason you feel that the church has pushed you away or is pushing you away now, know that that's not God. That's a bunch of stupid people. That's not God. That's a bunch of frightened, scared, stupid people. My friends, the grace of Jesus Christ that comes to us when we seek and goes ahead of us to draw us into seeking, the touch of the Creator's hand is ready for us all. Whatever may be pushing you to the margin today, whatever may be pushing you or trying to push you out of the family of faith today, hear the good news of the gospel. Stand in the woman with the hemorrhage's shoes. Thread through the crowd with faith. Reach out and touch and be made whole. And allow the Christ, the love of God, to embrace you and make you whole. In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. And may God's people